Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir Lazouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we will talk about, we will share with you the journey of somebody that went from zero in medical devices to hero, where he was successful on his journey. Um, I want to introduce you with Stephen O'Rourke. So, Stephen, welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hi, Monia. Thanks for having me. And
Well,
nice to hear you call me a hero. I'm not sure if it completely fits, but very, very nice of you.
it's for the title, so really to say that you are really making coming from no medical devices at the beginning, but yeah, it's just I think interesting for people that will be listening this episode because when we discussed, I think this can be, I hope, inspiring some of the people that were trying to move to medical devices. As I had a lot of people that says, "Oh, I want to move to medical devices. I came from." Pharma or from other industry or other things. So and you went through that type of journey, so it's why mainly I wanted to people to learn from you also. Um, but before to start, maybe can you share maybe more about you, who you are exactly?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, as I said, thanks for having me on. It's really nice to chat with you today about my story. So I'm from Ireland and I studied chemistry there. So my background is in chemistry and toxicology. And I've always had an interest in science from a young age, and that's obviously what led me to study that. And I've been working since 2012 in Germany. So that's when I moved here. And since then, I've been moving around to various fields, working in scientific marketing, product development, and so on. And then it was around 2018 that I made the break into regulatory affairs. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I've been up to. And yeah, and I guess I'll tell you a bit more eventually about how I got into it and so on.
Exactly, yeah. So the thing that is always interesting is to say, oh, you were working in different types of industries, and yeah, suddenly there is maybe an opportunity to arrive to medical devices. So can you tell us more about this opportunity for you? What exactly was this opportunity and why you said yes, and maybe it was maybe a mistake, I don't know, at the end.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. So I've always had an interest in regulatory in general. So my master's was in forensic toxicology, which is a lot of problem solving, a lot of application of law and science together to solve issues and problems. So I've always had in the back of my mind that that's a field that I wanted to get into. But it was only, like I mentioned, it was only around 2018 where I kind of kept keeping my eyes open for any regulatory roles that might come up. And that's kind of how it happened. I saw a role. So this wasn't the medical device role just yet. This is more or less just a summary of how I got into regulatory in general. And I always kept my eyes open. And then it was around then that I had the opportunity to join a big food producer to come on board as a regulatory manager in their team. And yeah, so that's kind of where it started. And then over the years, as I kind of deepened my knowledge in regulatory, picking up these skills and knowledge along the way. Then the opportunity to kind of branch out into medical devices came up with one of the clinics in Germany, one of the biggest in Europe here in Berlin.
Unearth the pulse of the medtech world with MedTech Conf, a dynamic platform featuring global events on medical devices, biologicals, IVD, and pharmaceuticals. Stay informed, stay ahead, connect, share, and elevate your knowledge. Become an official sponsor. Make your event shine on the map. MedTech Conf, your key to the medtech universe. Remember, the future is now, and it's at your fingertips with MedTech Conf.
Okay, so thanks for sharing with us this journey. So now, what was, if I can say, the most difficult part or piece of the job for you when you arrived to medical devices? So I suppose that first it's a discovery, so you are arriving and you find a new field. So what was mainly the most difficult part where you had to start your job or your activities with this clinic and you had to learn now medical devices?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because, of course, I brought with me a lot of the transferable skills. So in regulatory, regardless of food, biotech, or whatever, a lot of the skills you can kind of take with you to your next role. But I guess the biggest challenge, of course, was having to get to grips with the MDR document itself. I mean, anyone listening to this podcast knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's quite an extensive document. So I'd say that was the biggest one. I was trying to shift the mind a little bit because in novel food regulatory, where I started out, it's quite strict and it's quite, you really have to follow the guidelines to a T. Whereas in medical device regulatory, what I've learned over the time is that there's also a lot of, the Germans have a word, Spielraum. There's lots of playing room to kind of, to interpret things. And I think that has been the biggest thing to get my head around. But with the time, I see that it's a huge advantage because you can bring in a lot of different stakeholders and get their opinions. And then, of course, refer to the MDR document itself and come up with solutions and ways forward together.
Yeah, I think what is interesting on what you are saying is that, for example, in the food industry, as you are saying, so it's going on one way on your mouth, and you are ingesting that, and you are doing receiving the nutrients. So it's like one thing, but so it's why when we have a regulation that has only a restricted area, then it's easy to make it yeah fit, if I can say, or go on one way. But here we go from medical devices where we have some wheelchairs to a pacemaker, to an MRI machine, to a different thing that goes in different ways and different areas. So it's really difficult to make one regulation that fits everything. So yeah, it's why in your case, yeah, learning that medical device regulation where there is a Spielraum, so there is a room where you can play,
Yeah.
can be disturbing also for people that are not used to have this liberty to play on a room, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that's one of the advantages, definitely from going from one area of regulatory into medical device regulatory. It's something that at the beginning, don't get me wrong, it was very stressful. There's a lot to get to grips with. But like I mentioned, with the time you look back and you appreciate the medical device area because really there's so much room for collaboration. And I think that's something that I think the food industry and regulatory could probably learn a bit more from medical device, not just the regulators, but also the regulatory professionals, this really collaborative nature. That, of course, is also in food, but I think in medical device, it's a little bit more detailed and more collaborative.
So in terms of learning, so did you participate to some courses, classes, or did you had some support from some other consultants, or how did you accelerate maybe this learning here?
Yeah, so the main thing I did was so we recognized at the startup, at the spin-off of the clinic, there's obviously a lot of room for learning because, of course, you're bringing in professionals from different areas who need the time and patience to get to grips with this new area. So, of course, there was a bit of acknowledgement that, okay, you're going to need some time to get to grips with that. But then on the other hand, and at the same time, there was lots of room to do proper courses. So we worked with some institutions to where I did some certification in MDR. So in the space of the first, let's say the first 1 to 3 months, it was very intensive with getting to grips with what exactly it is that we're dealing with when it comes to the regulation.
So having some courses is interesting. Having some did you had also maybe to participate to some groups of discussions or some forums or things? Or did you had this kind of support also?
Oh yeah, definitely. So there was some conferences that were taking place, and that was really great to network. And I think that's one of the biggest things in my regulatory career to date that's been really helpful is the access to regulatory professionals who have always been, open to questions and always been willing to support new people or people who have come in. And I guess this is one of the reasons we're doing this podcast now, to kind of to offer some support to others who might be thinking of making this change into a different area. But certainly, yeah, the network has been a big one. And then, of course, the internal network as well. I mean, the clinic is experts from every field you can imagine, and they were always willing to give their time and to guide you through what from their perspective. So that was really also been very helpful. So not only are you dealing with the regulations, but you're also dealing with the end users and that really gives you a better perspective on what you're working on.
Yeah, and I think it's important what you are saying because yeah, this journey or this learning you cannot do it alone. You have to have some support, some professionals, some people that are helping you. You had to have a community that is behind you and that can hold you in case you have some difficulty or some questions or whatever. So yeah, it's important to know that this exists. For example, we have the courses that here we offer at Easy Medical Device, but we have also, as you mentioned, some other institutions that are offering courses. We have the groups, forums. For example, at Easy Medical Device, we have the WhatsApp group where people are asking a lot of questions also, but we have other groups also. And conferences, yeah, the conferences that are also something interesting where you are meeting the experts of the area and then yeah, mainly asking your questions. So it costs you maybe just the entry to the conference, but no, not all the hours of work with them, etc. So it's something while you have a coffee and you can discuss with them and ask all your questions, and then maybe also bring some opportunity there. So yeah, this is mainly something that I think is a good advice for people. Um, One thing that I wanted to ask mainly because I have people that are arriving to this. I am on medical devices since mainly at the beginning of my career, so it's not like something that where I see now surprises. But from your side, when you started to arrive to this field, did you had something like an epiphany or like a surprise or like a where I say, oh, really? They are doing that on that way? Or is there something I say, or it's this is easy, or no, no, this is really complicated on medical devices because of that? So is there something or a topic where you say, oh yeah, this was the surprising part for me?
Yeah, and I would have to touch back on what we discussed earlier. Really, the big surprise for me was the just how collaborative medical device regulatory could be compared to the other areas. So that was a big surprise because, when people hear of regulations, they think, okay, you need to stick to the regulations from A, B, C, and so on. And obviously that is the case. It's not like
Yeah.
you can skip certain important steps. But that really was a surprise to me that the regulators are so open and they're so open to talking with you. And they were, especially in my current role as a freelance regulatory consultant for various companies, I help startups. And when I help a food startup, usually their biggest complaint is that the regulators are not very open and are not very, yeah, they're not very open to questions. Whereas when I help a medical device startup, they see it differently because they've already started the discussions with the regulators and the notified bodies early in the process. And usually their experience, obviously there are exceptions, but their main experience is that, yeah, they have been quite open and willing to help along the way. So I would say that's been the biggest surprise, just how the vast difference in that approach.
No, I think you're right, and it's what maybe we said before. It's like no, it's not one regulation fits all products. So at the end, it's more about can you convince the notified body or the auditor or whatever that your strategy or what you are doing is making sense and is fine also for them because yeah, there are some kind of common sense also on what people are doing. So if people are doing something and it's common sense and it's making sense, it's logical, then why the regulator or the auditor will not accept that unless, as you said also, the regulation says specifically in that case, don't do this or don't do that. So yeah, in that case, the regulator cannot do a lot of things. But I suppose that, yeah, as you said, for food industry, for other industry, maybe they have like, as we call it, a checklist, and they have just to check to check that what is written is executed without really thinking or without really having to evaluate those kind of things.
Yeah, well, of course, anyone who's in the novel food regulatory space listening to this podcast now will probably be like, no, that's not how it is. It's much more difficult than that. And of course it is. We're simplifying things now. But yeah, that has been my experience. And I think the biggest difference is just, yeah, like I mentioned, how the differences between the strictness level, let's say.
So in terms of your journey, so now you are, if I can say, helping as a freelancer, as you said, the regulatory affairs consultant, so some companies. Now that you are, if you are now rethinking from beginning to the end, is there something that you said, oh, I've done this to learn, if I can say, this process, the medical device regulation and everything? but maybe I would have done it in another way because there was a shortcut to do that, or maybe I should have first done this before to do that because it complicated my task. Or is there something where on your projects or your learning journey you would maybe have done differently?
Yeah, the first thing that's coming to mind is very early in my regulatory career. Looking back, more time could have been put into gap assessments.
Okay.
So, especially when you're coming in to help a small startup, usually there would be no gap assessment in place and you'd be starting from scratch. So, I guess when you're a bit inexperienced, you might overlook the detail that might be needed in such a gap analysis. So, to answer your question, I would say that's probably one where, and if I turn the question around a bit, if somebody's thinking of getting into regulatory and they're thinking, okay, there's so much to do, but there's so much to focus on. What's one thing I can really focus on and get right is make sure you put a lot of effort into a gap analysis when you're starting a new project. So by doing that, you see what's already in place and what you need to do in the short, medium, and long term. And that, from experience, is incredibly helpful for any project in regulatory.
Yeah, I think by doing that, you are really focusing on what needs to be done instead of what maybe you see on the regulation. You say on the regulation, oh, you need to do a risk management, you need to do this. I mean, you see a full list of things, but if it's already existing and it's compliant, so then there is no need to do it again. If there is a and if is maybe a, as we said, the medical device regulation is big. You have a lot of type of products inside, but if your products are not implantable, then you can remove all the implantable clauses of the regulation, etc., etc. So yes, making a gap assessment of what is existing and what mainly they have to modify and then focus on it can be a good start. But as you said, this is maybe not only medical devices; it's really also some other regulation that have to. I mean, you have to follow that maybe for any other regulation also.
Yeah, definitely. I would say I would add on to that that when you're in regulatory, regardless of the industry, there's the tendency to really get lost in the detail.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly detailed. And definitely when I first started out in medical devices, I spent a lot of time getting into the nitty-gritty, which is obviously necessary, but there were some stages where I was really getting lost in the documentation, learning a lot, but spending a bit too much time going into the MDR and other regulations. So I would suggest that kind of have a proper plan, a proper learning plan if you're switching industries or getting into regulatory, and try your best to stick to it and don't, fall into the regulatory rabbit hole.
So now, if there was, I don't know if there was somebody that maybe now is listening to this episode and say, oh yes, I want to go through medical devices, and I want to do the same journey as you. Um, is there a step-by-step process that you would recommend? Step one, do this, step two, do that, etc. So is there something that you maybe say, oh, I will recommend you first to start by maybe, I don't know, reading the full EUMDR before to work? Or no, 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 you have really to dedicate your time on this thing first or that thing first, etc. So is there a step process that you would recommend? Hey, just a second. Do you need a EU, Swiss or UK representative? Then choose Easy Medical Device. We can represent you and also become your importer. Contact us at eo@easymedicaldevice.com.
Yeah, so the first thing that's very important is obviously to have the interest there. But I guess if you're looking to get into that area, you have that. And the big thing that helped me was to always keep your eyes open for opportunities because you never know where you're going to see a job posting that might fit to what you're currently looking for. But for me, the biggest one, the biggest tip I can give in terms of step by step would be network early and network often, because this is really where a lot of the opportunities are. For example, at a networking event, you could bump into a startup founder who is, let's say, in seed round or just coming out of seed round. And it's quite common in a lot of startups, they usually neglect regulatory, not because they don't see the importance, it's just because they don't have the money to be focusing on this. They focus on product. So this is really a good opportunity to talk to them and tell them, look, I'm interested in this. I have these skills and I could come on board as one of as one of your employees and help you get to grips with these regulatory issues. So really, it's about looking for opportunities, but also knowing when you see an opportunity to put yourself forward and get in there. So I'd say they're the biggest ones: networking, not being afraid to grab a chance if you see it, and of course, continuous learning, because in any regulatory field, I mean, you're learning every day. You're never going to be 100% expert because that doesn't exist. So it's a constantly evolving field.
Exactly, yeah. So, what you are saying is important is also that, as we said, the medical device regulation is a big elephant, if I can say, to eat. So you have to eat it pieces per pieces. But instead of starting to eat it, starting with a project, a first project, to know, for example, exactly what is the scope of this project. Let's say that it's a software project, for example. Then you not have to go through all the regulation, but just few elements that are related to the software as medical devices. So the idea here is you cannot be a specialist of everything from the beginning. So start somewhere, start with maybe a field, a certain product. As soon as you have an opportunity with a certain product, learn this product and what are the rules, regulations, requirements for this product. And maybe this can help you to ensure first this medical device field and then learn maybe another product or another classification or another category, etc., etc. So slowly you will enter to this field because I see a lot of people that are coming to me and say, "Oh, we have. I want to learn everything on medical devices." And even me, I say, I'm on this field since I'm 20 years maybe, and I didn't learn everything, so it's not like something that is possible. But I understand what they mean. I just want to tell them, yes, it's an elephant. You have to eat it piece by piece, so it's not something that can be done quickly. And what you are saying about going to a conference and meeting maybe some startup people is true. So I have many projects that I started also when I went to conferences and discussed with people that said, "Oh, yes, we are starting this project. What do you think, etc." And then we had a call, and then they say, "Oh, yeah, but we cannot do it alone. So let me help you. Let me ask you to help me, etc." So it's also a slow way to enter the project, and for that they have to have some confidence on you, so you have to show that you know a minimum of what is the regulation, and then you have the motivation to learn the rest. So it's as I said, it's a journey. So you cannot know everything from the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's is this mainly how also you enter to this field of medical devices when the clinical contact you? Because I think one of the difficulty when somebody hires you is to tell them that I have no experience at all on medical devices. So is this how were you able to convince them then?
Yeah, that's a very good question because I hope my answer will speak to those people in a current situation thinking, oh, I want to try this, but I don't have the experience or I don't have the direct experience. But I was working in food regulatory and then I branched out into financial technology regulatory. So in order to gather lots of different skills. And I think when I saw the job advert for the medical device role, I recognized that a lot of my skills, there are lots of transferable skills in regulatory. So that's what I made sure to highlight in my application that, look, at the moment, I'm no expert in medical devices, but this is what I can bring. This is what I've achieved in my regulatory jobs so far. And I'd like to help you guys build this venture. And yeah, it worked out. Yeah, so that comes back to what I was saying. It's just recognize the skills that you have. It's turning into one of those high motivation podcasts now. Believe in your potential. But yeah, really, it's about knowing what skills you have and don't undersell yourself. So really see where can my skills be applied to this field that I want to go into. And yeah, it's just about taking the chance.
Exactly. And don't be also stopped by your by one person that says no, I don't want you to work on that. So yeah, there are so many opportunities that try multiple, learn from each refusal that you receive to know exactly what was the thing that they were expecting, and then maybe go and learn more about this thing, etc.,
Yeah,
etc. So
exactly.
this can be also a learning. Um, Okay, so now I think it's really interesting what you have said, and I think this journey is. I hope this journey will be helping a lot of people that are listening now. just for people, in case, for people that are in the medical device field and that want to learn more about artificial intelligence, we are organizing a conference in France, in Strasbourg, about artificial intelligence for medical devices, for healthcare industry, but we are focusing also on medical devices. So if you are in the healthcare and AI software industry, so join us on October 1st in Strasbourg. I will put the link on the show notes, so if you can go there. So we'll have all the experts in medical devices, artificial intelligence. You'll have notified bodies, you'll have some consultants, you'll have a lawyer that will explain to you also the new legislation, the AI Act that was published, etc. So join us, and then you can maybe learn also something about that. And if you know somebody that is interested about this, so don't hesitate to share this the link also with them. Okay, so Stephen, what is, I mean, now that you shared about your journey, so what people, how you can help the audience mainly? So why people can contact you mainly?
Yeah, so my main area in my own company doing regulatory projects, that's what I do as a consultant. So I'm very thankful that I'm able to bring a lot of my experiences together across the regulatory area. So in novel foods, biotech, and also medical devices. So that's where I can help people. That's my day to day now, where I help mainly startups who are not so sure in which direction they should go. Like obviously when it comes to classification of a medical device and then more advanced topics. So that's the main thing that I do. I'm currently also getting involved in exactly what we're talking about, helping people to coach people to get into regulatory affairs. So I can use my background and my own story to help people who maybe have a scientific or law background and how they can get into a regulatory affairs manager role. And then sometimes I also do a bit of pro bono work. I help some startups that are engaged in areas that are close to me or areas that I find very interesting. So I would kind of help get them started when it comes to classification and what next steps they should take.
Great. So I will put all your details on the show notes. People can contact you directly, and then you may be able to help them. As said, if you are also, if people that are listening are also in a journey where they are willing to move to medical devices, so don't hesitate to contact Steven to get maybe some advice or maybe some coaching also from his side. I think it's really important, as we said from the beginning, you cannot do it alone. So you have really to contact some people that went through this journey, and this will help you to go through that quickly, to make a shortcut to that, and then maybe also to not make the same mistake as what we have done maybe at the beginning of our career. Okay, Steven, so thanks again for all those information and all the support to the audience, and I wish you a nice day.
Thanks a lot, Monier. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome.